Hello, everybody. This is Love from Above with your Sibling Spirit Guides. I'm Maureen, and this is my brother.
Hi, everyone. This is Brian.
Hey, Brian. So on this podcast, we share channelings we receive some from star beings, ascended masters, and occasionally our ancestors. And today's message is very timely for our July 4th holiday. It's interactions with our nation's leaders. We talked about before, some of the information that comes through is with regards to our true history of our planet, and this is with regards to our true history of our nation. And you're not going to find this in your textbooks, right, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you want to start off with the first one, which is our first founder, George Washington?
Yes. So, all right. So this was from the Watchers, and they said, indeed, we come forth today to regale you with stories from your country's past. We came forth to aid and assist with the starting of the United States of America. Our goal was to create a nation of light bearers that would raise the torch and smite the befallen, which is interesting. And so then they also go on to say that they engage in a discourse with the earliest settlers and advise them on the terms of the Louisiana Purchase that doubled the landmass of this wonderful country. Um, and then before I take a break here, like they said, we've been present with multiple of your leaders. Some choose to ignore our contact as a flight of fancy, a whimsical dream. So, what do you think, Maureen?
It is a question. I mean, we've heard that, that's one of the first things that happens when a leader comes into office is you're kind of introduced to the star beings. And we'd love to know how that happens or what, be a fly in that room. So I don't know. All of these stories will be really interesting when they come out. Like now, for years, decades and decades, people have talked about, the UFOs, the UFOs, the UFOs, and now the government has come out and, admitted that they've had contact with UFOs for decades. So this will be really interesting when it starts to come forth. Don't you agree?
Yeah, if it does, yeah, who knows if it actually will, but I totally agree that there's so much out there that a lot of our history isn't really accurate. So we aim to sort of like us, we're just sort of providing the message. We're not, but there's a lot to this, and so we're just trying to help share some of this information with all of you. So, um, but the other thing that I was going to say is then they sort of talk about um, said some of the leaders heeded our words to the letter of the law, and George Washington is a stellar example of an advanced soul and a capacity to invoke great change. So his leadership was respected by all, which afforded him unilateral support. They said the quality of his character was unremarkable. However, his study, pursuit of the ultimate truth is what led to his success. Um, then they say, in a similar fashion, you, Maureen, and your brother move forward with a most host of angelic support to raise the vibration of this nation we fostered so long ago. So, what do you think we're being compared to George Washington, Maureen?
Well, I told Brian, to all our listeners, I told Brian, we've mentioned on previous podcasts that we're compiling Thoth told us to compile a book. So we've both been working diligently on that. And it's really interesting because, we get these messages daily, and a lot of times they're short and other times they're longer, but to see them all compiled, like really, it's just fascinating information. And I definitely feel grateful to get this information and to be connected to my brother in this way, but seeing it together in a book form, like it just makes me realize the magnitude of the information that we receive. And I'm just, honestly, I'm in awe. So, do you have the same feelings working on the first volume of Love from Above with your Sibling Spirit Guides?
I do. And yeah, I agree. It is sometimes you lose sight out of it in the day-to-day, business of your world that the amazing things that come up. I'm teasing towards the third topic, but we actually had an interaction directly with a past leader of this nation. So I mean, it's like it's sometimes hard to comprehend, but it is amazing, and I'm just glad that we're able to share it with all of you.
Yeah, again, I'm just really, really grateful and just unusual information. So like the channeling that I did this morning was talking about the shape of our planet is not perfect, is not a circle. So, so I don't know, it just all this unusual information from a range of subjects. And again, I'm just grateful that we get it in on a daily basis. And we look forward to sharing this with you via the podcast. Now this podcast is on YouTube. So you can also connect there and hopefully soon with volume 1 of the book.
Absolutely. All right, so we'll go on to topic 2, which is from March 18th, again from the Watchers. And so it starts off, we come forth to speak to you about the true nature of the political events on your beloved planet, the true nature of reality of the planet you know as Earth. This is difficult to ascertain because multiple timelines exist on the perspective from each individual person. However, certain points are indeed fixed. So I know they talk, and we've read other books about how there's multiple timelines and changing of timelines, and it's sort of hard to comprehend, but it's that sort of stuff does go on. Um, but it says the opportunity given to Napoleon, General George Washington, founders Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin we're all given unique opportunities similar to the opportunities you and your brother presently experience. So the greater knowing of the true reality of the image of one creator in through time, space, time. So now, why don't you go on to talk about, you want to give a snapshot of one of these discussions?
Yeah, so they wanted to go through specifically with regards to John F. Kennedy, and they said that they did indeed come forward to advise the young president. However, he was reluctant to engage with our representative as they botched the job. The illusionary nature of the representative who appeared seemed like a magic trick without the usual gravitas that secures the attention of the one with whom we hold the message. This was indeed problematic, and although a fold in time could correct such a situation, in this particular instance, it was complicated, which I just love that little caveat. Like we could normally fix this with just folding time, but this situation was more complicated. We couldn't do it in this situation. I mean, it's like that is just unbelievable. You could fold time to fix this situation. So they said that as a result, the missile crisis began. So, I mean, just imagine this, like they came down, they're trying to avert the missile crisis. The guy or the gal or whoever, the being who came down, botched the job, and it didn't look, I guess it looked like a magic trick instead of like something that was really, really powerful. I mean, Brian, I mean, can you even imagine? Again, we could write a Hollywood screenplay with this kind of stuff.
And this is before my time, but I know the people at the time thought the Cuban Missile Crisis was going to be, World War III, or a nuclear, that there was going to be some nuclear fallout from this. So it was very tense. So it's very interesting. So they go on to say, it took great forethought on our ancestors to solve this particular problem, which required much faith and discipline from multiple realities. So if you look back historically, you'll see this crisis point was indeed a changing point within the world. The world as it existed ceased to operate, and this was a result of this transgression that occurred with the visit with John F. Kennedy. Um, it said John F. Kennedy Jr. I didn't know if that was the visit was with Jr. I don't know,
No,
but
yeah, John F. Kennedy, yeah.
yeah. The ray of enlightenment spawned the freedom of America's youth, which expanded worldwide. We give one such incidents at this time. So, yeah, it's very interesting that they came to him, but in a way that it didn't work out. So, I just wonder how they do make contact. It's sort of interesting to, I don't know if they'll ever talk about that in another session because they've talked about, contact with all these different leaders. I know you were also thinking about maybe a future topic. There's multiple, I think, sessions talking about Napoleon. Um, so all these, world leaders, a lot of them, have definitely been approached by star beings, and so it's just fascinating to me.
The one that I remember from Napoleon, because we've had so many episodes on Napoleon. I mean, literally, that could be one whole podcast. But the one caveat that I remember so well is that they said that, as they said in this one, there's multiple timelines, but they said it doesn't matter. All timelines include Napoleon. Like, he was really, really a central figure. So it doesn't matter what timeline you're on, there's some Napoleon history in your timeline, which is just, again, just mind-boggling to comprehend. But yeah, it's really, really interesting. And yeah, again, I would just love to be a fly on the wall to witness this whole thing.
Definitely.
And I will tell you, at some point, it will all come forward. I mean, it really will all come forward. I have no doubt, but whether we'll be alive to see it or not. But this is the most interesting one. And this came in within the past week, right, brother?
Yeah,
This
just a
was,
few days ago.
yeah. So I'll start us off on this one. And this was with Abe Lincoln. And it was, dearest one, we bring forth another who has come again and again in your historical framework. You may know him as the one who embodied many of your historical figures. The key word there is embodied. The importance of embodiment was crucial at important junctures at your historical time. You may recognize him as Abraham Lincoln in his most recent embodiment. He's preparing to enter the earthly plane again, as this is no easy task for one such as his, does not enter through the birth canal, but enters within the mind of a host being. Hello, Brian, what do you think?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, it said in there that he's been in, let's see, in several embodiments. He's embodied
Right.
many of your historical figures. So I wonder who else he was. But yeah, that's really interesting. I think we've read about this. What do they call that? A walk-in? I don't know if it's Dolores Cannon
Yes,
about that.
yes, that is Dolores Cannon talks about this when someone like is ready to leave, and then I don't know, someone comes in. I don't even know how that works, but
Yeah, so if
but you
someone wants to depart the body, sometimes they work out an arrangement to bring a new soul in, and so that's what they're talking about. So it's interesting that, but it goes on to sort of, so then Abraham Lincoln soul or whatever starts to talk, and he said, "Yeah, hello, I'm preparing for a new mission in this embodiment. I shall come as a political figure once more." The attenuating circumstances are being worked on as we speak. It's a delicate and crucial and important as a neurological surgery. The precise persona must be selected, the terms of engagement negotiated, and then the entry process and departure of the original soul, for no two bodies can inhibit the same soul. So, yeah, but then you can continue with what he thinks, but what do you think about that? Like it sounds like lawyers are working up the contract, the terms of engagement are being negotiated and but it's amazing. I'm sure it has to be very precise exactly when he's gonna come into this new embodiment and the old soul is gonna depart.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just fascinating. It's something that we don't really have, a history with. So it's just really, really interesting. The thing that I found really interesting is he goes on to say that, well, first he says that, his specialty is political discourse, and this is his way to serve the one. But he says it's easy to ascertain when a historical figure has been enveloped with the love and the light of a fresh embodiment. This can be seen as a radical departure from previous behavior. This behavior may be blamed on a divorce, midlife crisis, or underlying health condition, but the truth is the development of a new embodiment. Wow. I mean, that's really interesting. So a midlife crisis might not be what you think it is. It might be there's a new soul in that body. What do you
That's
think about
something to keep an eye on, everyone. So if you see, well, it doesn't even have to be a political figure. It could be, a regular person that this happens to. So this happens more than we know of, right? But if you see a dramatic change in a person, it could reflect that this has occurred. So yeah, it is.
You know what my favorite story is with regards to this is, again, everybody who's listened to this, I'm going to mention Drunvalo Makaziak's one of his famous books. But do you remember that story where he had like a nephew who was supposed to awaken, and he was actually hanging around in the same city where his nephew was, and he hung around for like decades. And his nephew was like really into money, was very successful business. And finally, after decades of hanging around, Drunvalo said, you know what, I'm leaving. Well, this guy was awakened, and he came to see Drunvalo. And then do you remember this, Brian? He, in a car accident, he left, his soul left and another body came in. And the thing that I remember is his wife was calling up Drunvalo saying, what happened to my husband? Because this guy was like huge into money. He was very successful into his material possessions. And he was, the new soul was like, chanting with beads and banging on drums. And the wife was calling up Drunvalo and saying, what is going on?
Yeah, I forgot about that till you mentioned that. That's right. I remember that story. That's a
That is
perfect
my
example.
favorite one. I forget, it wasn't in the Ancient Flower or whatever that book is, but it was in a different book of his. And I just loved that story. But thankfully for the wife, like, and this is terms of engagement, like the nephew left for like 3 years. It was a specific period of time. So the new soul was coming in for like a very short period of time, like 3 years or something. Then his nephew would return to the body. And I'm sure the wife would be happy again.
So funny. So funny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, this is just amazing. He goes on to say, we look for greater ways to serve in a shorter period of time. In this way, it is unnecessary for me to experience the travails of a turbulent childhood, the pangs of adolescence love, and puberty. I come as a fully formed adult, and the opportunity for me to serve at this juncture comes in areas outside of the United States. So actually, he goes on to say that I think he's coming in Asia this time, right, Brian?
I don't know if he mentioned it, but yeah, he says it's just good to become acquainted with new customs and new peoples. So, and then he called, I mean, this is why he was just, they know, we had talked that I may be working on this thing about our leaders. So he said, I thought this material might be relevant for the planned upcoming podcast. So it's funny that we get all this type of information before. We're like, we're thinking about doing this. We were talking, and then all of a sudden we get new information. So, we never have to worry about running out of topics because they always do provide lots of information, even if there's so much information to share. But if I'm not sure, they provide gentle nudges to us on helping us out at times as well.
Or the opposite. So I'm preparing a podcast next week and it was going to be on multiple topics. And I got the message, no, it has to be on just one topic. So it's definitely very guided from those above, which of course we're very, very grateful for. So, and Brian, I'm grateful for you. This is our father would say, this is quite a doozy. I appreciate you pulling this all together. This is very interesting, compelling information.
Yes, absolutely. I know I appreciate that and appreciate you and for doing all this work that provides us with all these channelings. Um, so why don't you do the first part of the closing and I'll do the second part, if that sounds good?
Yeah, so Brian found this great quote from Aura, who were the beings that actually I'm going to be sharing information for next week. And this is a beautiful message that Brian found. We work together in large homogeneous groups. Each member of the group serves a specific purpose. The allocation of decision-making is rotated on a regular basis. There are no leaders, presidents, prime ministers in our beloved nation. We work together as one. Brian, can you imagine that?
Well, I can. I mean, that's it seems so unlikely into today's, divisive, the way of our divisive nation is today. But, really, we just finished this book that we both read that I really thought was great, that
I thought it was
explained
great
a
too.
lot. Yeah, it's explained a lot about um, ascending into the fifth dimension, and it's called Intergalactic Cooperation: Messages of Ashtar Sheeran by Paulette Raymond. And so this was on page 188, and it said the increased vibration and harmonization of polarities will give Earth a balance that will support mankind in its efforts of achieving a life fit for humans. The division of resources, access to education for everyone will bring new prosperity to mankind for the good of everyone and of Earth. Some changes will be necessary to achieve this. However, these high cosmic vibrations will till the soil and return the population of the Earth to their humanity, their interaction, their compassion, and their cooperation. So as we move to our fifth dimension self, this is the direction we're headed, where we're not working against each other. We're all working as one. And so it's coming, folks.
It's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. So thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll look forward to talking to you next week.
Thanks, everyone.